Every year, citizens across Canada rank the environment as being at top of their list in regard to what they feel is important within their communities. This is the true story of how a mayor with a vision turned an otherwise toxic brownfield site into an economically productive eco-industrial development through the clever use of incentives and land use planning tools. The story begins in November 1999, when a fire broke out at one of the largest private landfill sites in Delta, British Columbia. There was over 2 million cubic meters of demolition and construction waste feeding the fire, which is enough waste to fill 800 Olympic swimming pools. By the time the flames died down, a local state of emergency had been declared and a toxic plume of smoke had dispersed over the region. Worse still, ditches and groundwater had been contaminated for miles around. Not being able to meet the costs of the cleanup, the landowner promptly went bankrupt, leaving the provincial government with a $4 million bill and the municipality with an orphan brownfield site. As a result, this site sat dormant for nearly a decade. Except it wasn't really dormant at all. Toxic leachate and landfill gas was seeping into a very sensitive environment close to the beautiful Fraser River and within meters of Burns Bog, a unique and protected wildlife area. This wasn't the only landfill, though. There were other privately owned sites that had turned the River Road East Corridor into a patchwork of wasteland, industrial storage, and truck parking. Developers weren't interested because the landfills were a major financial and physical impediment. No one wanted the liability. The situation was at a stalemate. The landfills continued to pollute the environment, but the costs of closing the sites, managing the pollution, and developing the land were more than the properties were worth. Not one to accept failure as a solution, Delta's Mayor Jackson had a vision for the area and started the Saving Our Industrial Lands initiative to kickstart investment in the area and promote sustainable industrial development. As a result, extensive consultation with government and private stakeholders began while economic incentives were put in place to encourage investors. Soon after, a planning concept was formulated based on best practices for eco-industrial design and construction. Regulatory processes were streamlined and things started to gain momentum. Then came the break that was needed. In 2009, construction began on the South Fraser Perimeter Road, which crosses through the south end of the landfill sites. Extensive engineering and environmental protection works would be undertaken by the provincial government, enabling Delta to piggyback on the works being undertaken by the Ministry of Transport and complete the closure works for the rest of the site. Delta presented a proposal to the owner of the adjacent land, which gave them Delta's land for free, together with a break on their property taxes if they agreed to close their landfill and relocate their business headquarters. It was a win-win-win situation for Delta, the business owner, and the environment. Today, from this one landfill site, more than 20,000 cubic meters of leachate is kept out of the environment each year, and 20,000 tons of greenhouse gas has been diverted from our airshed. Burns Bog is protected, and a large area of wasteland has been transformed into productive industrial use with hundreds of jobs and green buildings. This site is a blueprint for the redevelopment of the other landfill sites, and together, with the environmental and social benefits, will drive the revitalization of the local economy. Thanks to Mayor Jackson's can-do vision for the project, combined with the cooperation and collaboration between government and private parties, a brownfield legacy has been turned into an environmental, social, and economic success story that can be held up as an example for jurisdictions all over the world. It makes you wonder what else can be achieved when one is willing to think outside of the box and collaborate with others and the environment in mind. As Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has."